Okay, people, let's get into the topic of analysis for today before I get killed with all of these guys. Because I think I honestly defend the wall from attacking. I think I got a bit lost here. I shouldn't be in this area. Let's go back to town, shall we? The topic of analysis for today that I mentioned at the beginning, but well, here I was chatting with my dear friends here over at Twitch for anyone watching this as a YouTube bot. Let's get into the topic of analysis for today. Today I wanted to talk what I asked them precisely at the beginning about the potentially active elemental system of the game. But to get into that first, as the first talking point, I wanted to mention the rotational systems in isometric action RPG games and MMORPG games. In that sense, there are two possibilities basically in MMORPGs, in MMORPGs and isometric action RPGs, to have a sequential system, in which abilities are affected by the order in which you activate them, or having a non-sequential system in which you can just spam abilities in any order because they are. Or report to King Murolosh. This will be interesting. No, but first I bet I first have to deal with the other ones. Return to Capture and Cracklewood. Andrakash? Maybe there? Let me see. Damn it. There we go. So we first, as the first talking point, we need to do a classification. Hey, what's this? I cannot see my own stream. What's this, people? I cannot see my own stream. Okay, wait a sec. I hate it when I lose connection like that. There we go. Done. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Magnificent. I can see it. Why does it take so much time to refresh? That sense. Perfect. There we go. Magnificent. Brilliant. Amazing. There we go. Magnificent. Okay. People, as I was mentioning, for the topic of analysis for today, I wanted to mention the active component of the elemental system that, according to what my dear friends here over at Twitch are telling me, when the armor of a boss is broken, the resistances are different in that sense. So I want to analyze that in the framework of the first talking point that I wanted to mention, which is the sequential ability rotation system classification. In MMORPGs and isometric action RPGs, there are two distinctive possibilities. Of classifications regarding the abilities, a basic topic of the mid-game gameplay mechanics that I wanted to explore in an isometric action RPG or an MMORPG. Basically, two possibilities. Basically, a sequential rotational system or a non-sequential system. What determines this distinctive classification? The fact that if you have to activate your abilities in a specific order or in any random order, we are done with this side quest then. No, it's not a side quest, it's the main quest. It's one of the main quests. In any random order, like just activate my abilities in any order I'd like, or if there's a sequence. Why do I want to analyze this topic and the specific case of Drakensangonline? Because that adds an extra layer of abstract complexity to the gameplay mechanics. The sequential rotational system, just like we analyzed in Sacred 2 last last year precisely, not last time. Last time the previous game that we analyzed was a spell force and Drakensang I. You find clues about the stolen gems, Dragon bless you. Norm, of course, the dark dwarves hold them. That's a good thing. Norm, in my apprentice. Okay, perfect. Let's keep going. This is part of the main quest, people, in case you are wondering. We have to do all of these. Yes. So speak to Norm the novice in Stalgard. I know, but that's in this next city. So let's try this one that we have to report back. Andrakash. And where's Andrakash? This is Andrakash, no. The Gleaming Mountains. Let's go. Basically, isometric action RPG games and MMORPG games have a huge difference. Generally, MMORPG games have a rotational... Wait, I think it changed the quest. This one. In Andrakash. Wasn't it here? Friends of Andrakash. Return to Captain Cracklewood. Okay, maybe we all have to go to that city. We just have to go to that city. Damn it, what did I press? Press M. That has to be Andrakash, right? Andrakash? Alright, let's go over there, let's see if that's the city where we have to go. So basically, people, the point is that isometric action RPG games like Diablo 1 or Diablo 2, Diablo 3, all of them, they have a non-sequential usage of abilities. A non-sequential usage of abilities in that sense. And that has, by default, a lower abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics than a sequential system. Now, let's first get into this. Let's get into this first talking point before anything. In that sense, why is it that a sequential rotation in the usage of abilities adds an extra layer of abstract complexity compared to a non-sequential rotation? In that sense. In a non-sequential rotation, why is it that this phenomenon that you can find in World of Warcraft, for example, or in my case in Star Wars: The Republic, and most MMORPGs, is more complex? Well, it's because the order forcing the player to stick to a specific order in the usage of abilities makes the gameplay more complex, because you are actually forcing the player to follow a pattern that, if not executed appropriately, for example in Star Wars: The Republic, to cite an example that I know, for example, if you are playing Madness Sorcerer, you can, with an ability called Shock, you can execute all of the other damage over time effects that you dropped on the target, like Affliction or Creeping Terror or things like that, any damage over time effect. Then with that one you execute all of them completely. I drop a dot, a damage over time ability of 18 seconds that is ticking slowly on the target, and then with Shock the 18 seconds of tick are immediately finished, dealing all of the damage, for example. But then you have another ability called Death Field that creates something called death marks. Precisely, I know this rotation well. It creates 15 death marks that are consumed every time a damage over time ability slowly ticks. For example, this is not Anrakash. This is Thundercrest. Let me finish my quests, then I have to go to the other way, I presume, the other way around. Or is Andrakash this very city? Let me check up. Let me check up the. Let me check out the map. It has to be this shit, right? This one has to be Andrakash. There we go. Evil creatures. There we go. Let me turn in these quests. It's a relief to know that the dark dwarves are no match for you. Now I know that Murolosh can handle them in Thundercrest as well. Regardless, I'm sure you appreciate why we need humans to fight with us now. Okay. Then I bet I can turn in the other quest. So, I activate the death field, and it gives me 15 stacks. It puts 15 stacks on the target that increase the damage of my abilities by, I think it was 15%, pretty much. Okay, so imagine that I activate first the dots, and then the damage over time abilities, and then I execute them with shock without first applying the other ability that I told you about, which is Death Field. You can see me using it in Star Wars New Republic. That activates the dots that are consumed on usage. Right? I am effectively losing 15% of the damage. I did this as a quite stupid example of how a sequential ability rotation can have a huge impact. I'm losing 15% damage. 15% damage because I didn't activate the death field to enhance the damage by the execution of the rotation in that sense. So you can see that it can have a quite huge impact. Just a random stupid example that I wanted to cite. Let me turn in the quest and let's continue. But there you can see the difference that I wanted to highlight. You must have heard about the topic that I wanted to talk about as well. We've invented the dark dwarves longer than anyone I remember. Recently they grew more powerful. Can we count on you? Yeah, defend the wall. Okay, that one is closed. Chapter B2. I hope this is the main quest. Report to King Murolosh. This will be interesting. First, let's go to install guard. Okay. I think we are done with all of the main quests here. They are all red. Perfect. Check, check, checked. Good. So we can proceed to the next area. Let us proceed to the next area. Maybe that one that gave us a lot of main quests. This one? We're gonna... No. As you can see, I did everything. We can grab this one. 1 out of 2. Defend the Gemma Crystal Power. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's just in the same direction. Let's go. Okay. So we have those two possibilities, people. We have those two possibilities that I wanted to highlight, basically. Basically, isometric action. What's the case with isometric action RPG games in Diablo 3 or Diablo 2? You can really activate your abilities in any possible order you could think of. And it wouldn't drastically affect the damage you deal. You could tell me, well, but the counter argument could be, well, bad Eraser. The problem is that if you, for example, have a bunch of enemies, defend Gemma. The golems are coming. Please help me. Yeah, that's the spirit. For example, if you have a bunch of enemies, if you use area of effect damage, it will be more effective because it will multiply the effective damage that you are dealing in that sense. But it doesn't drastically change the interconnectivity, that's the key, of the abstract complexity of those abilities. What I told you before, with my example of Star Wars The Old Republic that I know by heart, is quite drastic, people, if you think about it. Losing 15% of all of your damage is a quite drastic situation. Or for example, if with the same skill tree, if you are not careful in the order in which you activate your abilities, or let's do the other way around. If you have a lot of expertise, like for example I have, you can time your death field in such a way, the ability that drops 15 death marks on the target that are consumed every time it ticks, every time the damage over time slowly activates, it enhances it by 15%. I do it in such a way so that the enhanced damage only consumes 4 death marks, because I activate the death field right before, for example, right before executing all of the damage over time. For example, see that they are drastic changes. That's the point. It doesn't matter if you know the game, you know what I'm talking about, or etc. But basically, what I'm telling you, okay, we have to finish this one. We'll do this one. Basically that instead of letting the 15 death marks consume, I can drop the 3 damage over time abilities, damage over time abilities on the target, activate the enhanced 15 points, the enhanced 15% damage, sorry, with the death field, and then execute all of the damage over time. And since it ticked once, it only consumed 4 death marks. For example, it's a random example that I know by heart, and that's why I can mention it. But I bet in World of Warcraft you can think of millions of examples. I execute them, and I get the whole damage of the damage over time, consuming less charges, let's say, less charges of the death field. You have gameplay over at YouTube in case you don't know how it works. It's what I've been playing there, so you have a visual reference. Okay, but the point is, see that the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics is drastically affected by the decisions I make as a player in the order of the abilities, in the order in which I execute the abilities, in that sense. So quite interesting, quite interesting, just so you see the difference. Compare that now that you have it in your head, like the image perfectly, as my first talking point. Compare that to Diablo 3, in which you can pretty much activate your abilities in any order. You can see that the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics is degraded, and I wanted to highlight that because in compared cases like Titan Quest, for example, or Diablo, or Grim Dawn, or whatever, generally you don't have to follow the strict pattern of a rotation. In Drakensang, there's a partial rotational system, because there is a rotational system. Partial because it could have been a bit more extended with passive abilities, I mean. But basically, you can see that if you read the description here, that's why I wanted to stop and read the descriptions for a second here. You can see that, for example, this one, the Frostwind. It inflicts times 10 frost damage upon hit enemies. Per hit enemies, it increases the damage of the ice missile by 1% for 8 seconds, and it increases the damage of the Frost Nova by 20% for 1.5 seconds. And it applies a debuff in which it slows down the target. Or this one, the Guardian base damage, blah 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 blah, inflicts +1 burn. Inflicts 1 burn upon enemies. This one doesn't affect other abilities in that sense. but I wanted to stop in the, on this one. And this one, what about this one? Wait now for a second. There, synergy. Look at that. 10% extra increased skill damage for each level of Meteor. In that sense. 5% increased skill damage for each level of Guardian of Flames. So the ability deals more damage depending on the skill tree integration of Meteor or the Guardian of Flames. So it's dealing more damage because of the 6 points that I've invested here. So, or the ones that I would invest here in Meteor, for example. So this is what I mean when I say the efficiency in the integration of the skill tree. What's that? Lockpick? What's that for? I don't know what that may be for. The efficiency in the integration of a skill tree. You can see how interesting it is. Okay, we got a better armor, finally. How interesting it is that abilities affect each other. That is the key that I want you to pay attention to as my second talking point. In a sequential ability rotation, that's why it's dealing that much damage. In a sequential ability rotation, for example, or this one, the singularity that breaks the armor of the targets and increases the damage. What I was precisely asking Fly Energy some minutes ago. That precisely, I know in Andrakash we can just go back, we can just teleport. Precisely, breaking the armor of the target changes the elemental resistances. It destroys the elemental resistances, so the elemental resistances are tied to the armor of the target in that sense. So pretty much, the idea is that in a sequential rotation, the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics is no, this is the other quest, and I finished the other one. Okay, perfect. Report defend the wall. Perfect. Let's go straight for the main quest there. So in a sequential ability rotation was the second conclusion. There's the highest degree of abstract complexity. Think about World of Warcraft, think about Titan Quest. It was the huge criticism, even though I awarded that game a 10 out of 10, that I made to Sacred 2, for example. It's a huge criticism I made to Sacred 2, that it didn't have a sequential ability rotation. The same goes for Diablo 3, Diablo 2, or whatever, or Titan Quest. It's a huge criticism, but in the case of Drakensang, that very specific point is covered, because the abilities do affect each other, in that sense. They do affect each other. Now, the degree of efficiency in integration could be better, because they are like isolated skill trees. In that sense, that's what I said as a criticism when I said that I would increase the degree of integration of the skill tree. In that sense, because, for example, the Frostwind, for example, increases the damage of Ice Missile and Frost Nova, but it doesn't affect the Fire skill tree. Imagine how rich the abstract complexity could be if we could mix the skill trees. See how interesting it is. Let me see this one. This one, for example, is disconnected, and this one, as fire damage, for example, this one is disconnected. The meteor is not affected by anything. It only affects this one, the fire blast, in that sense. So for each level, 10% damage skill damage increased by of meteor. Okay. and this one only affects itself. In that sense, I would have added more interconnection in the skill tree. Much more interconnection. These abilities here just increase damage. It's not an interconnection. For example, I would add something that modifies the fireball if you choose a passive skill tree that, for example, allows you to cast, I don't know, 3 fireballs or something like that. If you pick a passive talent, something like that. Something like that. Something like that. So, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, for example, for the fire skill tree, there's no point in activating the abilities in a sequential order because they don't affect each other, but in the frost skill tree it does. It's a weird partial solution. That's why I said it's a partial solution. That leads me to the third talking point. It's a partial solution because indeed oh wait, what's this? I have way too many. Extraordinary ability, real level, movement speed, armor value. Okay. Extraordinary quality. Oh well, anyways, I had to update this shit. Yeah, whatever. Again, full. So many quest items. Right click to add the currency to your currency bag. What? Is blinking now? Ah, there's another currency. There are more currencies in this game, people. Look at this. I wonder what they are used to. Maybe they are used to craft items or something. But well, the third talking point is that Drakensang getting into the particular case, bringing all of this theory to the more specific part of it, is that it does have a partial sequential rotational system. Why? Because some of the skill trees are affected in a perfectly the abilities affect each other in a perfectly connected way, which forces the player to obey, to follow a sequential rotation. For example, here you could see it, the Frost Wind enhances the damage of the Ice Missile, the basic ice attack, and the Frost Nova after its usage. So there is an order, but for example in the Fire skill tree, the Fire Blast, you can read there, that is passively, automatically affected in its damage by the level of our Meteor and the Guardian of Flames, basically. Correct? So the degree of efficiency in the abstract complexity of the integration of the gameplay mechanics is lower, or it's less effective by the developers in the Fire skill tree than the Frost skill tree. So there's disparity, there's a partial solution to adopting a sequential rotational system. Then we'll get into the arcane and lightning skill trees as we require them. But basically, I think you've seen my point by now in this third talking point. The developers of Drakensang Online went for a partially designed sequential solution. Here we go, defend the wall. Let's go. A partial sequential solution in that sense. So it could have been better, the solution could have been better, but still the abstract complexity is higher than a non-sequential solution like we could see in compared examples like Sacred 2 that we analyzed last year as another isometric action RPG, or Diablo 2 as a more common example, or Diablo 3. In those isometric action RPG games, there isn't really a sequential rotation that makes the player, that naturally encourages the player to organically design a rotation that increases the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, of course, as I've said. Forcing the player to, as I said, to first activate a specific ability to then sequentially rotate to another one will always enhance the experience in any game ever, because it allows the developers to increase the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics. The player is forced to follow a strict pattern to learn to be efficient in combat, and the more complex it is to be efficient in combat, the more effort the developers had to put in to design the rotation. People, just as a compared example, what is more complex to learn in general? The sequential rotation of World of Warcraft, to cite a common example, or in Diablo 3 just spamming your abilities without any kind of order? Well, you can see that 99% of the time World of Warcraft will prove to be more difficult because of this, because of adopting a sequential rotational system rather than a non-sequential system in which you simply spam your abilities in any order you really want. Pretty much. It's an extra layer of complexity that I wanted to highlight in these two systems. Okay, we got another quest from there. A good influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics here. I always cite this as an example. You could see that the health of the NPC was about to drop to 0, and I would have failed the quest. This is a good influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics, because the objective variety naturally enhanced the abstract difficulty of the game through the level design. I could have survived the encounter without any kind of issue, but I would have potentially failed the quest because of the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics. If my escortee would have died in that sense. It's a quite interesting phenomenon. That's why I always mention that the degree of efficiency in integration of the level design on the gameplay mechanics is always quite important. There you could see that I could have survived the encounter, but maybe if my escortee had died, there you have the source of the difficulty of the game coming from your escortee dying, rather than the level design of the objective variety in that case, rather than the combat itself, rather than the gameplay mechanics themselves. Quite interesting. But it's a point that we treated in previous streams, basically, because it's not the first time I have to do an escort mission, but I always cite as an example. So what I was precisely mentioning to you people regarding the topic of analysis of today, my third talking point, is that in the specific case of Drakensang Online, it has a partial sequential rotation to its system. Why? Because some of the skill trees do require a specific order in the activation of the abilities, while others don't. As I've said, the Frost Wind enhances the damage of the Frost Nova and the Ice Missile, so there's a sequential rotational system there. While the Fire skill tree, as you can see, they are disconnected from each other, the abilities. You can activate them in any order, and really they will deal the same base damage at that point. See how fascinating this phenomenon is. A game in which you have some sequential skill trees and other non-sequential skill trees, both systems partially coexisting with each other as a whole. Quite interesting. As I said, which would be the ideal solution, the perfect solution, the 10 out of 10 solution for any game, regardless of the fact that the genre may be isometric action RPG, a Diablo clone, or an MMORPG like World of Warcraft? No, well, this one is a daily. Let's drop this one. Let's continue with the main question. Report to King Murolosh. This will be interesting. This will be interesting. King Murolosh from... We played it. For those of you who are watching this as a YouTube mod, you know that I played Drakensang I the Dark Eye, the tabletop game, on stream. That's why I'm now playing this game, because it is actually Drakensang III. And now we get to see him. We get to see him. They kept King Murolosh that you could see in the first game. It's like the final part of Drakensang I, the Dark Eye, is with King Murolosh. When you beat the original first dragon and everything, you have everything over at YouTube. It has already uploaded there, the Drakensang series. So we meet again King Murolosh. This is amazing. Were allowed to keep the license for this character for the third game that you also encounter in the first one. But well, to wrap up my third talking point, then we'll get into the next one. Basically, the perfect ideal solution is a fully sequential rotational system in which abilities affect each other, and um, and basically the degree of efficiency in the abstract complexity of the interconnection of that skill tree is the highest degree possible. To have several skill trees all interconnected. That's the highest degree of abstract complexity. The case with World of Warcraft, the case with Star Wars The Old Republic, because they also create a lot of passives behind the scenes that affect your efficiency in combat to make the player to make it the most complex possible for the player to reach the highest degree of efficiency in combat. That's the key to a perfect sequential system. In the case of Drakensang Online, we can observe a partial system, which is better than average, because most isometric action RPG games, in the comparisons that I'll do now, they have non-sequential systems, but it's still not as complex as an MMORPG. We'll get into that in a minute. Into the comparisons as my fourth talking point. With Titan Quest, with Diablo, with Torchlight, basically, the establishing the comparisons with other isometric action RPG games, for example. Under threat, when I remember that what the wall used to be, I think the war's as good as lost. Then again, a dwarf never gives up without a fight. Will you help us, Eraser? We'll need your help if we're to hold the wall. Of course, King Murolosh, I know you from a long time ago, from the first game. The Dark Dwarfs breached the wall in a number of places, and they are heading into the Gleaming Mountains. Look for breaks to repair the holes in the wall. Strike down any Dark Dwarfs you see. Okay, we got our orders, people, from the king. Nonetheless, pretty much from the king himself, so let's execute those orders, as I've said. Okay, as I was mentioning as my fourth talking point, people, as my fourth talking point, comparisons. Alright, we just have to loot the bricks. Perfect. Comparisons. With Titan Quest, Diablo, Torchlight, etc, etc, etc. You basically have to... generally in isometric action RPG games, you have non-sequential rotations, like the fire skill tree of this game. Okay, I wonder if the frost skill tree deals more damage here. Let me change the preset. Let's go to frost preset. It doesn't change the abilities automatically. It should do that. Let me swap that, then go for... I have to invest a point here. For Frost Nova instead of that one. And a normal... And a normal Guardian instead of a Fire Guardian in that sense. Though it would be good, you know, it would be good to mix them up. Because this one, what does it deal? What kind of damage does it deal? As physical damage. I guess it's a bit more neutral. What if I just mix them up? What if I mix them up? Wisdom towns are not even people got battlegrounds. Oh, whatever. What if I mix them up? Because this one deals fire damage. Fire damage. Like this I would have fire and frost damage covered, pretty much. This one deals physical damage. It doesn't affect the others. That way I have two types of damage. Ah. It also has more damage increase, I think. Yeah. The frost skill tree is much more powerful in that sense because of that interconnection. But then again you lose the fire damage, but I can compensate that. What do you need for fire damage? I'm mostly using the Guardian. Let's go here. I don't see why. I already have the most important parts covered. This one increases the percentage of the damage. Should be much more powerful. Let me try it like this. Should be much more powerful. Like that. The boosted damage to the ice missile is a huge difference compared to the other ones. This is because of the resistances, but still, even with the ones that have a resistance, it's an advantage in that sense. I don't know why they did that of favoring the frost skill tree, giving it a sequential exponential damage increase compared to the fire damage. Like, the damage is off the charts like that. It's a huge difference. Here. So, quite interesting. Quite interesting phenomenon that they chose to grab some skill trees and assign them a sequential rotation, while others skill trees don't have a sequential rotation like the fire one. So for example, here you can see that now the Frost Nova should deal the... Let's wait until I have full like that. Like with the Frost Nova there, it's absolutely brutal. Why is it not getting through? It should pierce enemies. I also keep the fire damage with the Guardian, honestly. Like, unless it's a dedicated boss, for farming, this is the best setup. Pretty much, because you get fire damage plus frost. You have both of them covered. Let's try it with this one, that is a bit tougher. Reduce the armor, we do that, and now, yeah, the basic attack deals a lot of damage. This is proving to be correct. Here you have the frost. Where is it here? 9 out of help. 9 out of 10, sorry, 9 out of help. 9 out of 10 says the help thingy there. So I just follow Guardian and I'll have fire damage there. And anyways, the fire skill tree is not interconnected. It's like all raw brute damage in that sense. So yeah, we have one more thing there, one more objective. Let's complete it if we can. So it's quite curious that this game has a partial system. In which I'm not using that one. Has a partial system in which some skill trees have a sequential rotation, and other skill trees in the same game have a non-sequential connection. It's absolutely weird. Like there. 40% extra damage with your basic attack. Like, even if a mob has a resistance... Well, there I should have sprayed all of them. Even if a mob has a resistance, it's still an advantage because of the raw percentage increase in damage. So yeah, that's a weird decision. Like this, I'm already enhancing the damage and you can see the difference. Unless there's any other... Let me check out the other ones. Damage it, wait. The other ones are not interconnected, right? Let me check it. We need to check interconnection. Of mind control and singularity. This is the same as a fire damage skill tree. What about this one? Increase per skill. It affects itself as you draw points. Active cooldown of lightning strike is reduced by 0.5 seconds for each enemy hit. Well, this one is interesting. Okay. Okay, yeah, but so far the best one is the frost. Like you get with this one, you get a brute damage increase on your both basic attack and your main ability. It's like weird, this decision. It's weird, this decision. Besides, it pierces enemies, so it's more effective at dealing damage. Hey, what's that thing? Hey, what's that thing? The objective there. Because it's another one, don't worry. Over there. So, as my fourth talking point, I wanted to mention that, people. I wanted to mention that this game uses a quite unique partial system of a sequential rotation that is then not used in other skill trees. I would have used a sequential rotation for all skill trees in the game. Like, look at that, is extra damage. You can feel the difference, I guess. There. So, what is it that I have to do here? Repair the wall or... Oh, here. Hey, stranger. I'm hurt and I need help. Find a medic, would you? Please, they don't know anything in Stalgard. The world heart is safe. And one more thing, folks. He saved me from a certain death on the rack. Please tell Aggression. Okay. Good. Tell Gregosh about Reichras cries for help. This one has to be that one. Okay, good. It's nearby, so let's do this one. Alrighty. Let's take this path then. I should be able to go there. The flag on the map, I don't know what it indicates. Like this would be no armor and extra basic attack damage. You can see that it's a lot. And it's brutal. Like, even with the resistance is the frost combo is still the best. still the best because of what I said. It's the only skill tree that actually has a proper sequential rotation. That actually has a proper sequential rotation. It's a weird decision, if you ask me, people, as my fourth talking point, but one of our soldiers was tortured inside. It makes me see. Alright, anyways, thank you for the information. Good. Tell Agraxa that you helped everyone, blah blah. No, we're not doing that. We're doing another quest. Repair the wall. Speak to Norm, Novice in stock. We need that one. And no, it's in the next section. Okay. Then we have to go back. Let me go back there. King Murolosh. No, for centuries and the Dark Dwarves are the ones that we faced in Drakensang I, huh? People, I believe. I think repair the wall is this shit. Walling Thunder, Crest repaired, blah blah. Speak to the king. We managed to fix the holes in the wall. Thanks for your help. It won't stop the Dark Dwarves from trying to get to the Gleaming Mountains, but it'll slow them down. My beloved wife needs to know the truth about the war. The tides are turning in favor of the Dark Dwarves after centuries of a stalemate. If you remember from the first game, people, the Dark Dwarves were an integral part of the story there. Queen Agraxa. So he married the battle priest or whatever from the first game. May a miracle for her to win this war. King Murolosh, oh, look at that. He's still alive in the third game. Would you look at that? What about this one? Oh, we have to report back. Stalgard. Teleportarian boss dungeon. Let's see. Andrakash. Let's go back to Andrakash, people. Let's go back there. So, pretty much what I wanted to highlight today were those talking points. That the game uses a partial sequential rotational system, which is on average, in terms of the comparisons, higher in its abstract complexity to most common isometric action RPG games. In that sense, it's higher than Diablo, that you just activate your abilities in any order you'd like. For example, it's much higher, the abstract complexity, but it's still not as complex as an MMORPG like World of Warcraft or whatever, or Star Wars Republic, or most common MMORPGs in contrast. So we've got a middle term solution. I would say that the abstract complexity is a bit higher than, let's say, I don't know, Titan Quest or Diablo 2. It improved upon the formula because of the elemental system and the fact that you have to that there is a sequential rotation for the ice damage, but it could have been much better. Without a doubt. What I would have gone for, it's a solution in which we have four skill trees, four completely different skill trees, each with their own unique interactions. For example, one and all of them with sequential rotations in that sense. But for example, just so you have an idea, a fire skill tree completely separated from the other ones. You wouldn't be able to pick talents from the other ones, or not until endgame, where you could combine, which deals damage over time. You have 3 damage over time abilities, and then you have to, I don't know, execute them at once, like in Star Wars Republic or something like that. Or that you enhance the damage by using another one in a sequential order, or whatever, pretty much. Thank you for your help, weary Century of Warfare. So we need people like you to help dwarves survive. Foreign friend, dwarves are looking for the world heart. That seems to me the good dwarves admire the entries. How dark dwarves even based on what Raxira told you, I'd say we have a friend in Stalgrad though. The name Fox doesn't ring any bells. Still, you should look for him should you make it to the dwarf fortress. Okay, perfect. Find Fox. Anyways, both quests lead us to Stalgard, or whatever. Both quests, both main quests, people lead us to Stalgard. But well, as my fourth talking point, I wanted to highlight that the Drakensang uses a partial sequential system for the rotation, a partial sequential system for the rotation. It's above average in terms of abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics because of the elemental system, but it is absolutely puzzling why the Frost skill tree features this but not the others, at least for this class, but I bet it's the same for the other ones. It's quite puzzling. Why is it that the Frost skill tree, as you could see, if I activate Frostwind, it enhances the damage of the Ice Missile and the Frost Nova, but it's not the same for the Fire skill tree. It's absolutely puzzling that they put in the effort to reach that high level of abstract complexity of having a sequential rotation, referring to the first talking point, people, and the comparisons we established today. That isometric action RPG games can have sequential rotations or linear rotations in which you just activate the abilities in any order you'd like, and how the extra abstract complexity of having a sequential rotation benefits the overall, as I've said, the overall difficulty when the developers have to create the game itself. So I don't know what this shit maybe. Yeah, maybe some chests that you open with the lockpicks and everything. So in that sense, people, that after the 4th talking points of today, that's what I wanted to highlight. Drakensang Online, in a direct comparison with other isometric action RPGs of the genre, like Titan Quest, or Diablo 2, or Diablo 3, notice that in those isometric action RPG games, or Sacred 2 that we played last year, you can notice that in those games, you can activate your abilities in pretty much any order you'd like. They are non-sequential ability rotations. There basically are no rotations. You just activate your abilities and that's it. The fact that in this game you are forced to activate your abilities in a specific order to enhance your efficiency in combat, your base damage, is a quite positive aspect. Now, it is absolutely puzzling, it is absolutely weird that they implemented, the developers of Drakensang Online implemented a sequential ability rotation only for the Frost skill tree of the game, so far as I can notice. Because you can see, I activate Frostwind, correct? There you can see it, you can read it. Increases the damage of the Ice Missile and the Frost Nova. Here and here. Perfect. A sequential ability rotation. Just like in World of Warcraft, in Star Wars Republic, in the classic MMORPG genre structure of a rotational sequence of the abilities. But then look at the fire skill tree. Here, thank you. Um, it's a car foreign for being the 48th follower of the channel. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I deeply appreciate it. I don't know if you are there in the chat. Yeah. You are there in the chat. You probably just discovered the stream. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Don't be shy. My community is extremely polite and everything. As you can see, I analyze games. I do one topic per stream until I reach the final analysis. Generally, my audience is precisely a lot of the audience for these games from Europe. I was talking from, you can watch the VOD of this stream, and I talked with them or previous ones for 4 hours. And now, since as I've said, most of my community is from Europe, they had to go to sleep because it's 5 hours ahead in that sense. But this is what I do. I metaphysically analyze games. I started some 4 years ago, and basically the developers of two games called Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard, The Lord of the Rings World of the Ring, basically Liquid Entertainment from Pasadena, California, and even Cast Rise of the Mage from Austria. Quite good game that I highly recommend to everyone. I played it on stream. It's one of the most watched sleeper gems of my YouTube channel. Even Cast Rise of the Mage from Austria, the main level designer, they both praised my analysis, and that encouraged me to continue analyzing games. Today, precisely, I'm analyzing the sequential ability rotation in isometric action RPG games and comparing it to non-sequential cases. For example, like in Diablo 3, I was mentioning that you can activate abilities in any order you'd like, and it wouldn't affect your efficiency in combat, the overall damage. And my talking point was that games that the developers put in the effort to create a sequential ability rotation that demands much more talent, because at the end of the day, making the player follow pattern a strict pattern. That sounds cool, man. Great stream. Thank you. Is car foreign. It bores a lot of people when I start talking about metaphysics and all of these things, but that's what I do. I review and analyze games. Basically, just to have the idea, I've been told in the past that, well, it was a lot to take in the first time I saw your stream, but now I love it. And well, for other people it's boring because they just want to, I don't know, watch just I used to play Drakensang Online a lot of many years ago. Oh, that's amazing! I'm a newbie. I just discovered it. A viewer asked me to review this game for him because it was his favorite game. A viewer asked me to review it for him because he enjoyed me analyzing the first one. You know that this one is actually Drakensang III. The original one is a tabletop game, the Drakensang the Dark Eye. I played that one. I analyzed that one by random. At random, I chose it to analyze it, and a viewer of this game that played this game, that you can see that he helped me in a lot of the streams to level up or those things this trip. He asked me if, well, will you play Drakensang Online? Then after Drakensang 1, and I told him, would you like me to review it? And I'm reviewing it just like the rest of them. What do you like to play off stream? I play Star Wars Your Republic, as you can read from all of the... Well, a lot more. For example, like I am a fan of consoles or PC, you ask. Consoles, I love the 3DS, Nintendo. I'm generally Nintendo oriented, but also I love the PS3 back from the day. And then generally off stream, my favorite game of all time is Star Wars Your Republic, Knights of Your Republic. I like modded Skyrim. I need to showcase that one day off stream. I like real-time strategy. I know, way too unpopular, way too old school. I like real-time strategy. I like Age of Empires, Warcraft, all of those. I like MOBAs as well. Real-time strategy, it's within that that margin. A real-time strategy, I love it. I love isometric action RPG like this. I like, for example, well, Nintendo-oriented everything from Pokemon to Mario to everything, and then World of Warcraft, of course. I have my own reverse engineered server of World of Warcraft that I play offline. Even Frozen at Wrath of the Lich King expansion. And then I like real time with pause, like Drakensang Online, Baldur's Gate. I can show you, maybe I can show you more or less my crazy. You have the integral history of PC game genres, but more or less just so you have an idea. Um, the genres I like are basically, basically, um, as you can see here, I have Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights. I like Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 here, with all of those. Then Diablo 1, of course. Diablo Mini and XL, I highly recommend it. Resurrected, Diablo 3. Here I recommend you Sacred that I analyzed last year. This one will give you millions of hours easily. And then, of course, as I said, I know that it's not popular nowadays, but I love real-time strategy. As you can see, I love Age of Empires, Command and Conquer. This is the one that the developer of this game, I reviewed it, and and he was one of my first viewers, for example. Even cast Rise of the Mage that I mentioned to you. Basically, what is nowadays known as Diablo. Then I like racing. I like racing a lot. I love racing, Force and Need for Speed, everything in that sense. So generally those. Isometric action RPG, like Diablo clones. Then Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 with Baldur's Gate. Real-time strategy, racing a lot. And then of course platformers like Nintendo and everything. I only really dislike turn-based Japanese RPGs. And the other one, the survival horror. Games in which there is a lot of fighting, basically. They are pretty much the only genres I don't like, but the rest I like a lot of them. Pretty much all of them. Mario Kart, Kart Racer, for example, Split Second, I also showcased, and mostly off stream. Yeah, I would grab my here. I have my 3DS. As for non-PC games, those were PC games. Here I have my 3DS, and I love it, and I play with it, My 3DS. I also covered the PS Vita as well. And as for the rest, I don't like modern consoles. I think they are way too similar to a PC, except for the Switch, for the Nintendo Switch. I think they have become way too similar to a PC. So I stick to my PS3, my Xbox 360 that still had exclusives and those things, and the rest my PC in that sense, more or less. Sounds good, man. I'm going to go to sleep now. Good luck with the stream, and hope you're enjoying Drakensang Online. No, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I know that most of my audience is from Europe for this game, so it's an extra effort that I always appreciate. Basically, I analyze one topic per stream. You can watch more or less what I what I do. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for discovering my content, and well, you have all of the bolt and everything that will, if you end up liking the analysis I do, you'll have plenty of hours there that I've done in the previous 4 years. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's car foreign. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Okay, people, going back to the fourth topic that I was mentioning, the fourth talking point. In a compared system, basically, Drakensang Online opts to do a partial sequential system in which, inexplicably, in a very weird way, the the Frost branch of the skill tree does have a sequential rotation, as you could see, that the Frost Wind affects the basic attack and the Frost Nova. But if you pay attention, it is inexplicable. The Fire branch of the skill tree is not as interconnected as the Frost branch. Quite an interesting phenomenon. You can see here the fireball. It increases its own damage if I invest points. This one increases its own damage as well if I invest points. This one the same. And only this one, the Fire Blast, is affected passively, only passively, not actively like the Frost skill tree. Here it doesn't matter the order in which you activate abilities. It's increased by 10% for each passive point that I put on Meteor and 5% on the Guardian of Flames. So you can see how interesting it is. It's the first time I see a game in which there's a partial solution to the sequential or non-sequential system of a skill tree. We have a non-sequential skill tree right here in front of our eyes, and a sequential system right here, right besides the other one. So that's why I said at the beginning it's a partial solution. It's a partial solution. So, conclusion of this, after we get the quest. You're trying to get this to Stalgard? Why? I've been there and it is awful. I wouldn't dare go out there on my own anymore. I'd rather stay here and wait for Master Rakoros. One more thing, if you really want to go in there, you'll have to see Mr. Livanda first, okay? We had another quest though. Find Fox, but that was inside of a city as well. Ah, okay, I cannot access the city without doing this. It's the only quest we can proceed to do next, people. It's pretty much the only one. Pretty much. Here you can see that even if they block it, thanks to the icy wind there, it enhances the damage. It's quite weird. I've never seen a solution like this. Now, let's talk about the conclusion of this. The conclusion of these 4 talking points that I have been mentioning so far. What's the ideal solution? Well, people, I think throughout time it has been proven that the ideal solution is that of World of Warcraft and Star Wars: The Old Republic, because it's the highest point of abstract complexity in the case of those in the context of Dungeons and Dragons 4.0. Is the highest degree of abstract complexity. In World of Warcraft, you have to execute your rotation in a specific way, in a specific order for your abilities. They affect each other, enhancing the damage. In order to be efficient in combat, you need to execute them perfectly, and they also activate passive abilities like precisely the Frostwind here for the skill tree, like that one, enhancing the damage. So there you can see this one will deal fire damage. Perfect. So like this I have both of them covered. It's the best combo in that sense. So there you can see that it reaches the highest point of abstract complexity, which means the most effort by the developers to create that system. What's the opposite? For example, a non-sequential rotation, like Sacred 2. In Sacred 2, for example, you activate abilities in any order you'd like. The same goes for Titan Quest or Diablo, and really that does not affect the overall performance, the efficiency of the player when dealing damage. The player doesn't need to figure out the most efficient way, sequence in which he has to activate his abilities at all. You just activate them in any order and it will pretty much be the same. Now you could say, well, but in Diablo 3, if you have a group of mobs that are attacking you, you need to deal area of effect damage. For example, you need to deal area of effect damage. Otherwise, you are not efficient. Yeah, but you are not being affected really drastically, as I mentioned with my example in the first talking point with Star Wars: The Old Republic. You really are not affected drastically by that. It's a matter of the beam persists even through death. It really does not affect your damage drastically, all in all. It doesn't affect your damage drastically, all in all, people. Now, okay, I have some more minutes to be with you. Yeah, today I arrived late, sorry it won't be as long as the other day. So it basically, oh shit, there. It basically doesn't drastically affect your damage. In Star Wars: The Republic, if you don't know your rotation, the difference in damage shows immediately. The same goes for World of Warcraft. Um, the same goes for World of Warcraft in that sense. So I wanted you. I brought this topic today. I brought this topic today to 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 highlight and so you can see, and just so you can see that sequential systems. Where is it? Please tell me it's not over at the other town. Maybe then I can just teleport there. You can appreciate the differences between a sequential system, between sequential systems and non-sequential systems in that sense. Let me go to Andrakash to see if I have to ask for permission for permission to join to join the city there, to enter the city there with something or whatever. You through the wall. Yeah, it was at the city. See, I wasted that time trying to get through, trying to get through those walls of enemies. Of course, it's possible to go to Stalgard, sir. All you need is a kobold door to teleport there, which is no problem to build for an old kobold like me. Why, my magic is so powerful, I can fit entire horses in my enchanted lockers. Take this wood from the kobold oak to make the door. You'll need to gather the items just like I tell you to finish the portal. You should also consult Mr. Manterium, the powerful spellweaver. It could be wise since you are not a kobold. Okay, let's find the iridescent dragon scales from the Dragon Berserk. Okay, you guys are the boss. Are the bosses. So yeah, pretty much. So that's pretty much the idea that I wanted to why I wanted to highlight this today. Was the case with Drakensang Online as a conclusion. It has above average complexity. It has above average complexity because a lot of isometric action RPG games from this period of time, like Loki, Hand of God, etc., from this release date window, and even today, they just don't have an elemental system, and also they do not have a sequential ability rotation as well. In that sense, you just activate your abilities in any order, and that lowers the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics. In the case of this game, there's at least one skill tree for this class that I picked at random that has a sequential ability rotation. I will presume it's the same for the rest. Then I will ask the experts of the chat here what's the case with the other classes. But basically, having a single sequential ability rotation is more than enough. To warranty that the developers had to design at least one system of sequential rotation, which is always positive. And I bet for the other classes there needs to be something like this that I will ask, but still. So basically, today I wanted to highlight in the framework of a sequential ability rotation that the game is above average in terms of the solutions that it has. The active component of the elemental system, flying energies, fortunately told us that that is when you break the armor. That when you break the armor, it does change somehow. It does change. It does change. The armor provides the resistances, and when it's broken, then okay, there we go. When it's broken, then it eliminates the resistances of the boss. In that sense, it eliminates the resistances of the boss. In that sense, so yeah, pretty much. So I wanted to highlight that, people. I wanted to highlight that Drakensang Online has above average sequential. Is this for PvP, right? Okay, whatever, use it. Cobbled oak. Ah, I need the other component. Okay. Raw red crystal item. I have a lot of quest items now. What could I? Oh, no, this one has all of the things I had to do what district told me to use. Ancient wisdom. Add this to the currency bag. There we go. There I made some room. Oh my freaking lord. Buzzer blade, greasy hinges. What? Are they all of the components? Darn it. Yeah, they're all different components. Shit. Let me remove this. About 10 health points. Because definitely, people, we need 10 extra health points. That will save us. That'll save us. No problem whatsoever. 10 health points will save us. No problem whatsoever. Okay, so basically, Drakensang Online does have an above average abstract complexity of its sequential, because it has a sequential system, but oddly, in a weird way, in an extremely weird way, it was only designed for a single skill tree of my class, for a single branch of the skill tree of my class. I would have added kind of like 4 separate skill trees, the highest abstract complexity, 4 separate skill trees, in which they all... What's this that is blinking? Stop blinking, please. Bring your cold door and whatever. So back to town. The highest abstract complexity would have been 4 different skill trees, in which they are all like the frost skill tree of this game, working separately, differently, in that sense. So imagine, as a comparison, imagine that instead of this we have a full frost skill tree that covers all of these 4 points of abilities, the equivalent in... Imagine that here we have something different. Instead of ice missile, we have, I don't know, frost clone, that you can create a clone like in Sacred 2 that follows you and whatever, it's a doppelganger there, and then you can modify it so it's permanent like in Sacred 2, and then you say that when you have a frost clone active, the damage of your frost missile is enhanced by, I don't know, 5% or whatever, or you get 10% extra armor resistance or whatever you may imagine. The degree of interconnection of the skill tree, that's the key, people, what I have been mentioning. This game, for this class at least that I can see, has one skill tree that is properly interconnected. I activate this and it enhances the damage of 2 other abilities, pretty much, and 3 skill trees that they are not interconnected, like inside of each one of them, for fire, lightning, and this, that they don't affect each other directly, there isn't a sequence of abilities that you have to activate. You can activate them in any order, in that sense. So we have one sequential skill tree, branch of skill tree, and 3 non-sequential branches. Now, it's a partial solution. As I've said, the ideal situation would be to have 4 completely separate branches of the skill tree, each of them with different dynamics of the order in which you have to activate the abilities. For example, make one direct damage and another one damage over time, and another one a hybrid, or another one a semi-stealth one, something like that. Like pretty much World of Warcraft and Star Wars: Your Republic. That would have added the extra complexity that may be the problem. That may be the problem with Drakensang Online. The limitation that I see that the game has. The abstract complexity of the skill tree, how it interconnects with each other, the abilities, and the variety of those abilities, those skills. Hey Norm, what are you doing there? Bring wood to the workbench to finish to the workbench. We have a workbench in here. It's telling me to go there. Workbench. I already know how this works. Here, 1 material, 2 materials, 3 materials, 4 materials. Combine. Nice. Now we got the thingy. Here we mount, and we finish our quest. Hey, that one has a gorilla mount there. Has a gorilla mount. Did you break that last kobold door? Or do you think it was broken on purpose? Do you think it's a conspiracy? Unbelievable, Norm. He's not properly. This guy is not a sane individual. He's mistaking us for his apprentice. I believe he has mistaken us for his apprentice. Because Norm is the name of the apprentice that had to repair the door. Who do you think the doors are working with? As you know, Norm, kobold doors are not ordinary doors. You're still missing a few things to complete yours. The conspiracies in the details, you know, as like you have it. Conspiracy expert. Oh, my lord. It's not that easy to enter that city. This is like the beginning of The Witcher 1. In The Witcher 1, you know, it's like this, people. In the first zone, in order to get access to the main city, you have to get access to it after a long quest line, in that sense. So, as a conclusion, because of the fact that there's one branch of the skill tree that drakensangonline developed in a sequential way, it has higher abstract complexity than most common isometric action RPG games, but it doesn't reach the highest point of abstract complexity of World of Warcraft or Star Wars: The Old Republic games, in which you see, this one increases damage, right? I'm using a common one. There we go, much better. Or Star Wars: The Old Republic, in which there are even passive abilities working behind the scenes to ensure that the abstract complexity is at its highest. That basically you have to activate them in a specific sequential rotation, and also that all of the branches of the skill tree are like that. In the case of this game, it's only one branch that acts like that. The rest are kind of like direct damage, straight up there isn't a sequential rotation that you have to follow. You can activate them in any order, and that lowers the abstract complexity. Okay, so drakensangonline found a partial solution to having a sequential system. Okay, so basically that. So regarding the active component of it, as we've been told, when you break the armor, the resistances change. It is semi-static because it somehow changes once, but it's not something that is constantly changing. They should have added that resistances actively change. That would have given the game a perfect flair, distinctive feature that they that would have exponentially multiplied the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics. But well, people, the point of today was just to cite this topic so you can see that that basically damn, my inventory is full again. Putrid inventory. I'm sick of this shit. Yeah. It's because of all of the quest items that I have to collect. Oh my lord. Oh my lord. Oh, destroy it. Yeah. Go. Shock screw. Instead of a corkscrew. Bullet keyholes. Oh damn it, we have to loot all of the items. We have to loot all of the items of this one. There we go. Yeah, pretty much nothing I would do would help me with 4 different quest items for a single quest in that sense. So basically that's the idea, people. You could perfectly see the difference today in the second half of the stream, how a sequential system works when I explained Star Wars: The Republic, same goes for World of Warcraft, and then the dull case of Diablo 3, for example, and other isometric action RPG games that simply go for a non-sequential system. Non-sequential systems lack the abstract complexity of sequential systems, so it's nice to see that Drakensang Online is kind of like a partial solution on one hand, and it's like a partial solution on one hand in which it mixes them, but it would have reached a higher abstract complexity of that elemental system in that sense. Like there you can see that combining those increases the damage to the maximum. Another positive aspect, one last positive aspect that I wanted to highlight, is that the game properly erects a psychological barrier. Oh my god, that's a lot of fun. It properly erects a psychological barrier with just so the player doesn't proceed if he doesn't understand this elemental system. You cannot brute force your way through the game without understanding the elemental system and the sequential rotation in that sense. And maybe if you farm a lot on normal mode, but still. First, not movement speed. Whatever, drop it here, yeah. Ah, there we go. Two of them. So basically that. Bring records and new collecting. Alright, we're done. Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to draw those conclusions as the final talking points, people. I wanted to draw those conclusions. So we'll leave it here. We'll leave it here. I have to go. But next time we can continue analyzing the rest of the aspects, precisely the grandeur category of the analysis that District wanted to know about it. I like that the mount looks at the player actually. If you pay attention in the animation, like look at this, it does it at the player. Okay. Oh, this thing is I don't know how to get rid of. Whatever. Oh, look at that, a miracle. All of the the real in-game cash shop thing is disappeared. Notices disappeared. Look at that. Okay, people. It's been my pleasure sharing this 9th day of metaphysical analysis of Drakensang Online with you. The conclusion is that the game uses a sequential ability rotation on the frost branch of the skill tree, but not on the other 3 in this class. Then I'll ask about others. The degree of integration could have been better, but it's still above average because most isometric action RPG games, Diablo clones, don't even have a sequential skill tree at all. So it's still an improvement. So I highly recommend. I highly recommend. I have an above average esteem of games that precisely use this system. For example, Sacred 2 had a lot of amazing ideas, but this one wasn't one of them. It wasn't one of them. The rotation is not sequential. It was streamlined in that sense. But then the passives of the skill tree compensated for it. In that sense, this game doesn't have a lot of passive skill trees, so it doesn't. They are kind of like generic. They just increase DPS in general. So yeah, pretty much. It's a mixed bag. Still above average, but could be better. Could be better in that sense. How, you may ask? Well, with what I told you, having 4 different skill trees, because I'm not going to criticize without giving a solution. 4 different skill trees in which you do an integration. Of a sequential ability rotation for each one of them. For example, here the meteor affecting the fire blast, turning this into, like for example, this one, instead of dealing direct damage, dealing damage over time, that then you have to detonate with this or something like that in 4 different skill trees. That would have been the perfect solution that you can find in, as I said, in World of Warcraft and Star Wars: The Republic. That, as I've said, because of the reasons that I've been commenting, logically argumented, World of Warcraft and Star Wars: The Republic and the rest of the MMORPGs from that period of time have the highest degree of abstract complexity, because as you activate the abilities in a very specific order, you fire off the different passives that will then enhance other abilities of it, and then because of that you are exponentially affecting the overall final total output of damage in a very drastic way through a mechanic that forces the player to, as I've said, strictly activate the abilities in a sequential order, forcing the player to have an extra layer of abstract complexity to learn about before he can master the game. Oh Okay, people, that's the conclusion of today's analysis, pretty much. We'll keep analyzing the different aspects that the game has to offer on Thursday. I'm still dealing with something with Star Wars: The Republic. I will see if we can finish the third chapter. I want you to meet some special friends that I want to have recorded on stream, and then after we are done with that, we'll continue with Drakensang, and then maybe in the future we can do Star Wars: The Republic, the Knights of the Eternal Throne expansion. Maybe we can do something like that. Okay. So it's been my pleasure, people. Thanks to everyone who participated today. Iskar, Foreign, Patrick, the whole stream. I loved our chat. I'm gonna go to sleep. It was a good talk once in a stream. Hope it was enjoyable. Patrick, you told me it was amazing chat. We can chat about all of that. People, as I said, I support freedom of expression. Thanks, of course, to District and Flying Energies, to Angels. Anyone watching, check out Flying Energies. He's amazing, an amazing guy. Um, of course, and of course to the rest of the people, to Lol Dragos that appeared at the beginning of the stream, who also asked me about the best combination for mage, and yeah, pretty much I think I covered you all. Thanks to Phantom and Ambra, of course, that were present in the previous stream. I don't forget about any of you. Of course, to Bane, Death, and all of the amazing people from Star Wars: The Republic, to Malish, that also followed the other day, to Diamond Aegon for being the 82nd subscriber over at YouTube. So to No Limit GX for the raid the other day, to Crazy Scar, so to Isar 7 from Star Wars: The Republic, Big Panda 74 from Star Wars: The Republic, to Kitty Kisses from Star Wars: The Republic. Okay, people, it's been my pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Absolute. Uh, Love to you all. Hope you have a great, great week, and see you all on Thursday, people. See you all on Thursday. Have a great, great week. Bye bye. It was a pleasure. Have a great, great week. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Bye bye. Love you all amazing and amazing people. Yeah.